I took the late night shuttle all the time. It was just another part of my normal schedule. I was a nursing major at CU Boulder, and my schedule was brutal. Labs, clinicals, endless hours of studying. By the time I left the library most nights, the campus was dead quiet, and the shuttle was the safest, easiest way back to my dorm. It was never packed, usually just a few exhausted students like me, earbuds in, heads down. That night, though, I was the only passenger. It was late, past 1 a.m., and I was drained. My backpack felt heavier than it usually did, my brain foggy from cramming for an anatomy exam. When I climbed onto the bus, I barely looked at the driver, just mumbled a tired "hey" before taking my usual seat a few rows behind him. The shuttle doors hissed shut, and we pulled away from the curb. At first, nothing seemed off. The soft thrum of the engine, the warm glow from above, the crisp night air slipping through the cracked window beside me. It was normal, routine. But then I noticed something. We weren't taking the usual route. The shuttle had a set path. It looped around campus, hit a few student housing areas, then stopped near the dorms on the south end. I knew it by heart. But after a few minutes, I realized we were going the wrong way. Instead of heading toward the dorms, the bus turned onto a narrow road leading away from campus. The buildings became sparse, the streetlights fewer. I sat up, suddenly more alert. Maybe the driver was taking a detour? Construction? I looked at him. He didn't look concerned. He was an older guy, maybe in his 50s, with thinning gray hair and a stiff, upright posture. His uniform was standard. Black polo, ID badge clipped to his pocket. But something about the way he was sitting, hands tight on the wheel, eyes locked straight ahead, made my stomach clench. I leaned forward slightly. Excuse me? He didn't react. I tried again, louder. Hey, this isn't the right way. Still nothing. He just kept driving. My fingers curled around the strap of my backpack. I told myself to stay calm. Maybe he didn't hear me. Maybe he was on autopilot, half asleep at the wheel. But then he turned onto an even smaller road. No streetlights, no houses, just trees. And that's when I felt it, that sick, creeping realization. This isn't a detour. This isn't a mistake. I gripped the armrest of my seat, pulse starting to pound in my ears. Okay, don't panic. I reached for my phone, fingers shaking. No service. My stomach twisted. My dorm was back the other way. There were no student housing areas out here. I stood up. Hey, where are we going? The driver finally reacted. He smiled. Not the kind of smile that makes you relax. A weird, tight-lipped grin. Then, without saying a word, he reached for something on the dashboard. Click. The doors locked. Panic hit me. I grabbed the seat in front of me. Why did you lock the doors? No answer. Where the hell are we going? Still nothing. The bus slowed. I looked out the window. We were surrounded by thick trees now. No buildings, no roads, just dense forest stretching into darkness. That's when he put the bus in park and stood up. My body locked up. The doors were locked. The windows wouldn't open enough for me to squeeze through. I backed away, clutching my backpack like a shield. The driver stepped into the aisle. Slow, focused. His smile never dropped. You shouldn't be out so late. His voice was calm, flat, like we were having a normal conversation. I didn't answer. I was scanning for an exit. Anything. Could I break a window? Fight him? He took another step closer. I bolted. I lunged for the emergency exit at the back, slammed my hand against the handle. Nothing. Locked. The driver sighed. "You shouldn't." I grabbed my backpack and threw it. It hit him hard in the chest, knocking him back just enough for me to sprint past him. I reached the front of the bus, fumbling for the lock on the doors. His footsteps pounded behind me. I yanked the handle. Shit. Then, headlights. For a split second, I thought I was imagining it. But no, a car was coming down the road. The driver froze. His expression shifted. Like, suddenly, I wasn't supposed to be here. Like, I was ruining something. I slammed my fist against the window, screaming, "Help!" The approaching car slowed. The driver hesitated. Then, with no warning, he unlocked the doors and shoved me out. I hit the ground hard, skin scraping against the pavement. My bag spilled beside me, the contents scattering across the road. Before I could scramble to my feet, the bus doors slammed shut. The driver reversed, then sped off into the darkness. The guy from the car stepped toward me, fast. I hesitated. The driver was huge, big, bearded, covered in tattoos, and probably in his mid-30s. The kind of guy that made my brain scream danger before I could even process what I was seeing. But I was trapped. For a split second, I thought about running. My brain was still wired for escape, and this guy, this hulking guy, was moving right at me. But then I saw his face, furious. Not at me, at the bus driver. He looked at me, then at the bus disappearing down the road. And instead of reaching for me, he reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out his phone, and started writing something down. "The license plate," he said. His voice was firm and dead serious. I stared at him, still frozen on the ground. I was panting, barely able to catch my breath. "You okay?" I didn't know how to answer that. "Did you know him?" I shook my head. "No." His jaw clenched. "Come on. We're going to the police." Everything in me said, never get into a stranger's car. But I was already looking around, realizing there was nowhere else to go. No streetlights, no sidewalks, just endless trees, and a road that stretched into blackness. I grabbed my bag, scrambled to my feet, and climbed into his passenger seat, hands trembling. The entire ride, he kept his eyes locked on the road. No small talk, no weird questions, just driving. And I sat there, clutching my phone, heart hammering, waiting for the moment this would turn bad. It never did. When we reached the police station, he parked, killed the engine, and got out, just like that. Like he actually meant to take me there. He walked inside with me, gave his statement, even showed the officers the plate number and shuttle ID he'd written down. The bus driver wasn't just some random creep. He was an employee of the campus shuttle service. I filed my report. My hands wouldn't stop shaking as I wrote down everything I could remember. The guy stayed with me the whole time. When the officers asked if I needed a ride back, he spoke up first. "I'll take her." They looked at him, looked at me. "You okay with that?" I felt my throat tighten, but I nodded anyway. I don't even know why I trusted him. Maybe because I had no choice. Maybe because if he'd wanted to hurt me, he already had plenty of chances. He dropped me off at the campus security office, made sure I had people around me, and then just left. I never saw him again. No way to thank him, no way to even find out who he was. But I think about him all the time. That stranger, that big, scary-looking guy who saved me without asking for anything in return. He was an angel to me. And because of him, That bus driver was fired, arrested. Turns out, this wasn't his first complaint. It was just the first time they could prove it. And yet, none of that made me feel safer. Because he knew. He knew where I went to school. He knew where my dorm was. And if that man had really been waiting for someone, what happens when he decides to come back? You hear stories about the tunnels. Every college has them. Old maintenance tunnels, forgotten by most, buried under decades of renovations. Some say they were used for secret research. Others claim they were escape routes for students during riots. At my school, the rumor was that someone never made it out. I thought it was just an urban legend, until I went down there myself. I was in my junior year at a university in Richmond, majoring in anthropology. My friends, Nick and Jordan, were the type who liked breaking into abandoned buildings, climbing rooftops, sneaking into places we weren't supposed to be. So when Nick found an old blueprint of the campus tunnel system online, it was a no-brainer. "We have to check it out," he said, eyes gleaming. "It's basically a rite of passage." Jordan gave him a look. "You sure it's even accessible?" Nick smirked. I checked. There's an old entrance near the boiler room in Weldon Hall. They don't even lock it. That was all it took. That Friday night, after most students had cleared out, we slipped into Weldon Hall, ducked past the security camera, and found the entrance, a rusty metal door behind a stack of janitor's carts. Nick pulled it open with a groan of rusted hinges. A wave of cold air hit us. The tunnel was real. The second we stepped inside, the sound changed. You don't realize how much noise fills a campus, air vents, distant voices, footsteps, until you're in a place where nothing moves. Our flashlights cut through the dust-filled air, revealing cracked concrete walls lined with old pipes and faded markings. A musty, metallic smell hung around us like damp earth mixed with something else. "This is insane," Jordan whispered. "It's like stepping back in time." Nick was ahead, leading the way. According to the map, there's a whole network under here. Some parts connect to buildings that don't even exist anymore. We walked for maybe 10 minutes, turning corners, stepping over old buckets, broken light fixtures, and scattered debris. At one point, I noticed graffiti carved into the walls. Not spray paint, but deep, jagged scratches. It didn't look like something students would do. More like claw marks. Somewhere near the third turn, we hit a junction where the tunnel split in two. "Left or right?" Nick asked. Jordan looked uneasy. "We should head back soon." Nick rolled his eyes. "Dude, we just got here." I turned my light down the right tunnel. It sloped slightly downward, vanishing into pure darkness. I don't know why, but something about it felt wrong, like it was waiting for us. I gulped. "Let's go left." We walked for another few minutes, then Nick stopped. "Guys, listen." At first, I didn't hear anything. But then, a whisper. So soft I almost doubted, but I felt it more than heard it. Jordan backed up immediately. Nope, we're done." Nick took a second, then tried to sound confident. "It's probably just a pipe hissing." I shone my flashlight down the corridor. The whispering stopped. That was worse. I turned to say something to Nick, but he was gone. "Nick?" I turned my flashlight in a full circle. Nothing. Jordan's breath hitched. He was just here. A scuffing sound echoed from the tunnel ahead. Jordan grabbed my arm. "We're leaving, right now." I wasn't going to argue. We turned back toward the entrance, moving fast, but the tunnel felt longer now. I knew it was just paranoia, but every step we took, I felt like we weren't getting any closer. Then another sound from behind us. Footsteps, not Nick's. Fast, unsteady. I spun around, flashlight beam trembling. That's when I saw him. A man standing completely still, facing the wall. Jordan yanked me backward. "Run!" But I couldn't move. The figure, he wasn't Nick. His clothes were wrong, too old. His shoulders hunched at an unnatural angle, head tilted slightly like he was listening to something. The whispering started again. My name, coming from him. That snapped me out of it. I grabbed Jordan's sleeve and bolted. We tore through the tunnel, rounding corners blindly. At one point, I looked back. The figure was closer. He wasn't walking. He wasn't running. But he was closer. We finally saw the metal door ahead. Jordan shoved it open, and we stumbled out, gasping for air. Nick was already outside. He was pale, eyes darting back and forth like he was expecting something to come crawling out after us. Jordan was still trying to catch his breath when he snapped. "Dude, what the hell was that? Why did you run?" Nick didn't answer at first. His hands were on his knees, bent over like he might puke. Then finally he muttered, "I saw it." Jordan took a step forward. "You saw it? You mean you left us? Because you saw it?" Nick swallowed hard, barely looking at us. "I don't know what I saw, okay? He ran a hand through his hair, breathing hard. It was standing there, and the second it moved, I was gone. He hadn't called out to us, hadn't tried to warn us. He'd just run. Jordan and I looked at each other. Neither of us said what we were thinking. We didn't argue. We didn't try to explain what we'd seen. We just left. That night, I spent the whole night wide-eyed, waiting for morning. The next morning, I checked the campus archives out of morbid curiosity. Most records of the tunnels were sealed, but I found a couple of old articles about a student who disappeared in the 1960s. His friends said he went exploring under the campus. They never found his body. The last thing anyone heard from him? A whisper, calling his friend's name. I never went near Weldon Hall again. Nick and Jordan refused to talk about it. But sometimes when I walk alone at night, I swear I hear it, that faint, distant whisper, calling my name. And I know deep down that whatever was in those tunnels never left. It's still down there. I moved into Creekside Hall on a Sunday afternoon in August. It was my first year at UT Austin, and I was excited. Freshman year, total freedom, no parents breathing down my neck. My dorm, room 317, was a single, which meant no annoying roommate drama. The building was old, though, one of those brutalist concrete towers built in the 60s. The hallways had flickering lights. The carpets were stained from decades of spilled coffee and cheap beer, and the walls were thin enough that I could hear my neighbors talking even when they whispered. But I didn't care. It was my own space. The first few days went by fine. I set up my bed, my desk, and my tiny fridge, making the space feel like home. It wasn't until my third night that I noticed the smell. It started off subtle, just a faint mustiness in the air, like old books left in a damp basement. I assumed it was from the AC. It was an ancient system, barely pushing out cold air even when it was cranked to the max. By the end of the week, the smell had gotten worse. It was starting to rot. I scrubbed the floors, wiped down the walls, even bought one of those plug-in air fresheners. Nothing helped. By the second week, it was unbearable. It was no longer just a bad smell. It was something rotting, something dead. I finally went to the front desk. "Hey, my room smells like something died in there," I said to the RA, a junior named Brian, who barely looked up from his phone. He sighed. "Yeah, man, it's an old building. Probably the pipes." "No," I insisted. "It's not the pipes. It's getting worse, like unbearable." He sighed and called maintenance. The next morning, 2 maintenance guys showed up. One was balding and bored, the other young and disinterested. They had their flashlights and their toolboxes and checked all the usual spots. The bathroom pipes? Clean. The fridge? Fine. The closet? Empty. Then they climbed into the crawl space above my ceiling. When they came down, the older guy shrugged. "Nothing up there. Smells fine to me." I stared at them, dumbfounded. "Fine? Are you serious? You don't smell that?" The younger guy just wiped his hands on his pants. "Maybe something in the vents, but we can't check unless you want us to tear the walls open." Then they left. The smell stayed. That night, I couldn't sleep. The smell was getting worse. I dragged my desk under the air vent and climbed on top. It was one of those old metal grates, bolted shut. I held up my phone flashlight and shined it inside. Nothing. Just dust and darkness. But the smell, God, it was stronger up there. Something was inside. The next morning, I saw them. Tiny white maggots wriggling in a line across my windowsill. I crushed one with a tissue, barely thinking. Then I saw another, and another. A whole trail of them, leading to the vent. I stormed back to the front desk, slammed my hand on the counter, and demanded they send someone to check inside the vents. This time, 3 guys showed up. They weren't playing around. They brought crowbars, gloves, a full toolbox. One of them unscrewed the vent, while the others held a trash bag ready. The moment the grate came off, the stench hit us like a sledgehammer. Even the workers gagged. What they found inside was a plastic bag, ripped open, something black and mushy inside. One of the workers cursed. "Jesus Christ." The other guy grabbed gloves, reached in, and pulled it out. It was raw meat. Rotten, liquefied, decayed beyond recognition. It oozed between his fingers, dripping down onto the floor. The smell was so thick, it felt like I was breathing it in. I backed up, covering my nose. "What the hell? How did that get in there?" One of the guys shook his head. "No clue. Maybe someone put it in as a prank?" But I wasn't listening, because I remembered something. Before I moved in, my RA told me this room had been empty for a semester. Nobody had lived here. Nobody. And the vent had been sealed shut. And yet somehow, that bag had gotten inside. That night, I kept staring at the vent, expecting to see someone watching me, because now I had bigger questions. Who put that meat in the vent? When? And why, after weeks of suffering through that smell, did I never hear a single fly? Because that meat had been rotting for weeks. But there were no flies, just maggots. And they weren't crawling out of the vent. They were coming from inside the walls. I demanded a room change. No arguments, no debates. The RA barely even asked why. I moved out the next day. I still don't know who or what put that meat in the vent. Was it just a prank? Or was it meant for someone else? I guess I'll never know. I was excited to move into my hall, one of the older dorm buildings at my university in Philadelphia. It had character, brick walls, massive windows, and an eerie history of urban legends passed down by students. It was fall 2021, my sophomore year, and for the first time, I had a single room. The first few weeks were normal. Classes were intense. My roommate from freshman year had moved off campus, and I enjoyed the newfound privacy. Until the knocking started. It happened at exactly 2 a.m. on a Tuesday night. 3 slow knocks. Knock, knock, knock. I was half asleep, groggy, but I got up and checked the peephole. The dim hallway lights illuminated a figure just standing there. A tall guy, early 20s, smiling. "Can I help you?" I mumbled through the door. He didn't say anything, just stared, with that creepy grin. After a moment, he turned and walked away. I didn't think much of it, just another weird dorm thing. But it happened again the next night, and the night after that, always at 2 a.m. By the 4th night, I was on edge. Why was he doing this? This time, I just watched through the peephole. He knocked, stood there for about a minute, and then walked off. Slow, deliberate, as if he knew I was watching. I started leaving my desk lamp on at night, hoping the light would deter him. But it didn't matter. Every single night, without fail, the knocks would come. 3 times. Never more, never less. The next morning, I casually asked my hallmates, "Hey, does anyone know the RA for this floor? He keeps knocking on my door late at night." A girl named Tara frowned. "Our RA is a woman, and she doesn't do rounds that late." That stopped me in my tracks. No, I mean the guy, the tall one with dark hair, always smiling? Tara shook her head. "There's no male RA in this hall." I laughed it off, pretending it was no big deal. But that night, when 2 a.m. came, I was too scared to check the peephole. I lay in bed, holding my breath, waiting for the knock. It still came. Knock, knock, knock. By the next morning, I'd had enough. I went straight to the front desk. "The RA on my floor keeps knocking on my door at 2 a.m., I said. "Can you tell him to stop?" The receptionist, a senior named Greg, stared at me. "Which RA?" "I don't know his name. Tall, dark hair, always smiling." Greg's face went pale. "We don't have a male RA in this building. We haven't since last semester." "What?" My hands went clammy. "But he's been knocking at my door all week." Greg grabbed his laptop and checked the records. After a long pause, he looked back up at me. The only male RA who fits that description was transferred out last year. My mouth went dry. Then, who the hell is knocking on my door? That night, I sat by my door, phone in hand, waiting. At 1:58 a.m., my heart was pounding. The hallway outside was silent. The dim, yellow light from the wall sconces barely reached under my door. 1:59 a.m., I clutched the baseball bat I bought that afternoon. 2 a.m., the knocks came. Knock, knock, knock. I didn't move. Then, I heard it. The doorknob jiggled. My breath caught in my throat. The handle turned slowly. I lunged forward and slammed the deadbolt. Silence. Then footsteps walking away. By morning, I went straight to campus security. They took me seriously when I mentioned the doorknob turning. They checked the dorm's security footage. What they found made my skin crawl. The camera caught him, a tall man in a hoodie, standing outside my door at 2 a.m. sharp. I stared at the footage, my mind spinning. Then campus security did one more check. Just to be sure, they searched the records of the former RA, the one Greg had said was transferred, and they found something disturbing. Before his transfer, he had reported losing his master key. Campus security immediately replaced the locks and put out a report. But the guy, they never found him. The police never found him. And the university assured me he would never step foot on campus again. That night, lying in my newly secured dorm, a realization crept into my mind, slowly turning my stomach. If he had a master key, how many times had he actually been inside my room? How many times had I slept, completely unaware that he might have been standing right there, watching? Had he walked around my room, touched my things? Had he stood over my bed just waiting until I stirred in my sleep? I shuddered at the thought. It was all too easy to imagine him standing just inches from my face, his eerie grin lingering in the dark. I slept with the lights on after that. The RA was never seen on campus again. But late at night, when it's dead silent, I can't stop thinking. How many times did he stand over my bed? How many times did I sleep through it? I should have felt relieved after I moved out of that dorm. But even now, in a new dorm, sometimes I wake up with my heart racing, sure that something pulled me from my sleep. And I don't know if it's real or if I'm just remembering. If these stories made you double-check your dorm locks, hit that like button and share this video with a friend who needs a reminder to stay alert. Have your own terrifying college experience? Drop it in the comments or email me. I want to hear every chilling detail. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss another nightmare. Late night study sessions and campus legends are one thing, but some horrors are very real. Stay safe out there, and remember, not every knock on your door is from someone you want to let in.